For over 50 years, the galactic war continued without rest. Stars became battlefields, planets turned into ashes. Ships from different species flew across space, carrying weapons heavier than suns. Alliances were made and broken. Victories were always temporary. No side could win. Some fought for power, some for revenge, and others simply forgot why they were fighting at all. Humans watched this war from far away. Earth had stayed quiet. They had ships, they had soldiers, but they never sent them. Their leaders said it was not their fight. While others destroyed, humans built. While fleets clashed, humans traded. They sent food, medicine, and help, but never warships, many alien. Leaders laughed. They called humans weak. They said Earth feared real war. Some even forgot that humans were once known for their strength and strange courage. Then, one day, everything changed. On the edge of the Corvex sector. In a small command ship, an alien officer named Sella stood before a large screen. She was young for her kind, but smart and sharp. Her eyes, glowing like deep blue stars, watched the battlefield with worry. Her ship was part of the Voran Alliance, one of the last remaining powers in the war. More enemy ships entering Sector 3, said her pilot. They outnumber us 3-1. Sella didn't panic. She had seen worse. Still, the situation was bad. Her fleet was tired, supplies were low, and morale was broken. Send a signal to Central Command, she ordered. Tell them we need reinforcements now, the message was sent. Silence followed. Minutes later, the enemy appeared, dark, silent, fast. Sella's ship shook as explosions lit the void. One cruiser went down, then another. She gritted her teeth and shouted orders. Shields were raised, weapons fired, but it was not enough. Just as the fleet started to fall apart, a new signal appeared on the screen. Unidentified ship entering sector. Unknown origin, the scanner reported. Show it, Sella said. The screen changed. A single ship flew into the battle zone. It was different from anything Sella had seen. No bright lights. No smooth design. It looked old, bulky, and simple, like a ship from centuries ago. Some on the bridge laughed. Someone lost their museum ship, joked the weapons officer, but Sella stared closer. The ship wasn't moving fast, yet its path was clean, direct. It passed through wreckage without slowing. No signals, no warnings, nothing. Just silent movement. Scan it, she said. The ship's data confused the system. Power levels couldn't be measured. No known weapon type, no shield readings. It was like looking at a ghost. Is that human? Someone whispered. Sella single quotes S. Heart beat faster. The ship finally stopped between her broken fleet and the enemy line. The enemy paused, unsure what to make of it. And then the ship opened fire. No sound came through space, but the result was clear. One enemy ship exploded instantly. The next vanished, as if cut from space. The others tried to move, but it was too late. In less than a minute, 7 enemy ships were gone. Everyone on Sella's bridge was silent. What was that? Asked. The pilot, that, Sella said slowly, was a human warship. Messages started to flood in from other sectors. Reports came from all corners of the battlefield. More enemy fleets disappearing. Always the same ship. Always the same result. Fast, silent, deadly. The galaxy had waited 50 years for humans to join the war. Now, they had. And in just the first hour, the war began to shake. The battlefield was filled with wreckage. Broken ships floated in silence. Flames flickered in the vacuum. But in the middle of it all, the human warship stood untouched. Officer Sella couldn't believe her eyes. It had destroyed an entire enemy group without taking a single hit. She stared at the screen, waiting to see if it would retreat or send a message. But the ship remained silent, like a shadow. They're not answering our signals, her communications. Officer said, "Keep trying," Sella replied. "Don't stop. We need to know what they're doing." On other ships across the fleet, commanders gave similar orders. They wanted answers. They wanted to know how one ship had done so much. But none of their messages reached the human warship. Then, without warning, the human ship moved again. "They're changing course," the pilot said. "Heading straight into the heart of Sector 11. Sector 11 was controlled by the enemy's largest remaining fleet. Are they insane? One of Sella's officers asked. No, Sella whispered. They're going to end this. The screen zoomed in on the human ship. There were no fancy engines, no visible weapons, and no flashy technology. It looked like it belonged to another time. But its movements were exact, clean, and calm. Soon, reports came in from Sector 11. 3 cruisers down. Enemy dreadnought disabled. They single quote they're retreating. Sella's team was stunned. Enemy fleets that had crushed? Entire systems were now running. The galaxy had seen countless battles, but nothing like this. How are they doing it? Her pilot asked. That ship doesn't even look strong. Maybe it's not the ship, Sella replied. Maybe it's the people inside. Inside the human warship, Captain Lee sat in his chair, silent and focused. His crew worked like clockwork. No one shouted, no one panicked. They had trained for this moment for years. While the galaxy had fought, Earth had prepared. They had studied every fleet, every weapon, every weakness. They had waited quietly. Now they were using everything. They knew. Target next group, Captain Lee said softly. The crew locked onto the enemy formation ahead. The ship's systems hummed as energy moved through ancient-looking panels. Hidden weapons glowed to life, not with bright lights, but with quiet, cold precision. One more volley. 5 more enemy ships vanished. By now, every species in the war had noticed. Messages flew across star systems. Some feared what was happening. Others cheered. And some just watched in stunned silence. In a hidden war room far away, galactic leaders argued. We must stop them. How? No one can track their weapons. Send our best ships. But they were too late. By the 3rd hour, the human ship had moved into the main war zone. It had destroyed over 40 enemy ships and faced 0 losses. Every time it appeared, enemy fleets tried to run before they were targeted. Sella stood in her ship's observation deck, watching it all. They're not here for fun, she said to her officers. They're here to stop this war. One of her crew members asked, Why now? Why not years ago? Sella didn't answer right away. Then she said, Maybe they waited until we were tired. Maybe they gave us a chance to fix this ourselves. There was silence again. Then her communications officer spoke up. We just received a signal from the human ship. Sella turned quickly. Put it on. The message was simple. Do not follow. Stay out of our way. This ends today. The voice was calm, quiet, certain. Captain Lee, Sella whispered. That's the name. How do you know? Someone asked. Because years ago, she said, he visited our planet. He studied our war history. He asked questions, thousands of them. He never told us why. Now I know. The human ship disappeared. From her screen again, moving deeper into enemy space, the clock kept ticking, and the galaxy knew something big was coming before the 5th hour struck. In the past, the war zones were filled with noise, radio chatter, orders, screams, explosions. But now there was silence. Only one ship moved through space without fear. The human warship. Every fleet in the area knew its name now, the Silent Hammer. It didn't move fast, it didn't shine. But everywhere it went, the enemy fell apart. It was not just power, it was precision. It didn't waste energy, it didn't fire wildly. Every shot counted. Every move had a purpose. Sella watched from a command post on a nearby station. Her fleet was pulled back as ordered. Humans had made it clear, stay out of the way. She didn't argue. No one did. No one wanted to get in their path. Enemy groups are trying to regroup in Quadrant 5, her officer reported. They won't have time, Sella said. The humans are already on their way. True enough, sensors lit up. The Silent Hammer had entered Quadrant 5. This time, the enemy didn't wait. 3 battle cruisers rushed forward, hoping to stop the human ship. Their weapons lit up space, throwing everything they had at the target. Missiles, energy beams, shock pulses, none of it worked. The Silent Hammer didn't even take damage. Its shields absorbed the attacks like soft rain. Then it responded not with fire and thunder, but with cold, controlled strikes. 3 shots, 3 ships gone. No delay, no sound, they make it look easy, Sella said quietly. One of her younger officers, a nervous alien with green-tinted skin, asked, "How is that possible? How can one ship do this?" "Because they don't fight like us," she answered. "They don't show off. They don't chase glory. They just end things." In the human warship, Captain Lee remained calm. His crew worked without words. Every station knew what to do. They had practiced this mission for years. They didn't celebrate after each win. They simply moved on to the next task. "Next target, 2 minutes out," said the navigator. Lee nodded. "Engage when ready." They didn't fire until they were sure. No missed shots. No wasted time. Outside, panic spread through enemy ranks. Some ships tried to escape. Others tried to hide. They sent out distress signals, fake surrender calls, anything to slow the humans down. But the silent hammer ignored it all. The 4th hour began. In just 4 hours, the humans had destroyed over 100 enemy ships. And they hadn't lost a single one, all across the galaxy. Leaders were waking up to the truth. This wasn't just a warning. This was the end of the war. On a diplomatic vessel, a group of alliance leaders met in secret. They had once been enemies. Now they sat at the same table, tired, scared, and speechless. "We cannot stop them." One said, "We should never have pushed Earth away." Another replied, "What do we do now?" A third asked. They turned to the screen in front of them. It showed the silent hammer flying through a debris field, calm and steady. Behind it, only silence. "We send a message," said the first voice again. "We surrender," Sella received the update a moment later. Many factions had just signed a surrender treaty, unofficial but real. She looked at her officers and said, "Get me a line to the human ship." "They're still not responding." The comms officer said, "Try again," she replied. "They deserve to know we heard them." Minutes passed. Then, for the first time, a new message came through from the silent hammer. "Do not fear us. Fear what your war made us become." Those words hit hard. They weren't said with anger. Not with pride. Just quiet truth. The galaxy had called humans weak, but now the galaxy understood humans were never afraid of war. They just knew its cost. And when they finally stepped in, they didn't come to fight. They came to finish it, and that's exactly what they were doing. The 4th hour was ending, and the galaxy had changed. What once was a battlefield full of pride and anger had become quiet. Warships drifted without purpose. Commanders who once shouted orders now waited in silence. Even the most powerful fleets held back, afraid to face the human warship. Inside the silent hammer, Captain Lee studied the last set of data. The battle map was filled with red marks turning black, enemy ships that had either been destroyed or disabled. There were only a few pockets of resistance left, but they were scattered and weak. "Next wave forming near Delta Station," said the tactical officer. Lee gave a single nod. "We finish this." His voice was calm. It had always been calm. But those under his command knew that every word carried weight. This mission wasn't about showing power, it was about restoring balance. Earth had watched the war for years, hoping someone would stop it. No one had, so they did. Across the galaxy, observers watched with growing awe. Some ships streamed the human warship's movements, broadcasting to their homeworlds. Crowds gathered in cities, staring at screens. Even young children, who had only known war stories, watched in silence. They saw a ship that didn't brag, didn't boast, didn't smile after each victory. Just moved forward like a hand sweeping away darkness. On the command station where Officer Sella remained, the mood was different now. Her team no longer felt fear or confusion. They felt respect. The kind of respect that didn't come from fear but from truth. "They've reached Delta Station." The sensor officer reported. Delta Station was one of the last enemy strongholds. It was protected by a ring of warships and 3 planetary cannons. Even strong fleets avoided it, but the silent hammer didn't stop. After the peace summit ended, the galaxy slowly began to change. Leaders who once doubted Earth's power now spoke with respect. The story of the vanished fleet spread quietly, turning from rumor into fact. Claire returned to Earth, greeted by her team in the command center. She did not celebrate. Instead, she looked out at the stars, knowing the work was never truly done. Back on the summit station, many species reflected on what had happened. Some realized that Earth's military was unlike any other. It was not just ships or weapons. It was patience, silence, and a strength that did not need to prove itself. The Galactic Council called a special meeting weeks later. The subject was Earth. They wanted to understand the true reason behind its strange ways. Claire was invited again. This time not just as a diplomat, but as a teacher. She spoke simply. Earth chooses not to bring its military to peace talks because we believe that power shown in silence is stronger than power shouted in war. Some leaders nodded, others whispered. A few were still skeptical, but none could deny the truth. One young alien diplomat asked, "But if Earth does not bring its weapons, how do you protect yourselves?" Claire smiled softly. "Our protection is not in what you see, it is in what you do not see. It is in readiness without threat, in defense without attack." The council listened closely. A respected elder from the Givern race stood and said, "The Epsilon event was not a myth. It was a warning. Earth showed us that true power is not in destruction but in control." From that day, many species began to change their ways. They started to believe that peace could be held not by weapons alone, but by understanding and respect on Earth. Hidden systems continued to watch the galaxy. Silent guardians waited for any sign of danger, but they also watched for peace. Claire knew the future was uncertain. Threats could come again. But she also knew that Earth's way, silent, patient, and strong, would always protect her people. She looked at the stars and whispered, "We don't need to bring our military to peace talks because the real strength is knowing when not to use it." And with that, Earth's quiet power became a legend in the galaxy, a story of peace kept by shadows, and a warning that silence can be the loudest roar. It flew straight in. Defenses opened fire. Hundreds of energy blasts lit the space around the human ship. But nothing hit. The ship moved like it already knew where every blast would land. It weaved through chaos with perfect ease. Within minutes, one cannon was gone. Then the second, then the third. Not destroyed wildly, but carefully. The ship didn't waste fire. It hit each target exactly where needed, shutting them down, not blowing them apart. Even in war, humans were showing mercy. The enemy ships tried to fight back. Some turned and ran. Others powered down and sent surrender signals. Delta Station went dark. "We're getting a message," Sella's comms officer said suddenly. "From the human ship?" Sella asked. "No. From the enemy command," he replied. "They're surrendering? They say they won't fight anymore." Sella stood still. For so long, she had hoped this war would end. And now it had, without a long treaty, without more battles. Just one ship, 5 hours, and a decision that changed everything. She leaned forward and whispered, "Send it to the humans." The message was relayed. On board the Silent Hammer. The final update came in. Enemy command. Surrender confirmed. Captain Lee stared at the words. For a moment he said nothing. Then he gave the only order left. "Stand down all weapons. Broadcast one message." His officer nodded. "What message, Captain?" Lee replied quietly, "The war is over." Those 4 words reached every ship, every outpost, every station. In seconds, the stars that had burned with war for 50 years now glowed with peace. The 5th hour had begun. But there was no more fighting left to do. When the 5th hour started, there was no fire left in the sky. Space was quiet. For the first time in 50 years, the galaxy was still. The war was over. The message from the human warship had spread everywhere. The war is over. Those 4 words reached every fleet, every base, and every leader. Some didn't believe it at first. Others cried. Some fell to their knees. The message wasn't just an end. It was a warning. Not shouted, not forced. Just true. Inside the human warship, the Silent Hammer, Captain Lee sat with his hands folded. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't angry. He just looked tired. "Status?" he asked. "All remaining enemy ships have powered down," said his officer. "No resistance anywhere? Any new attacks?" "None. Everyone's gone silent," Lee nodded. "Good. No more shots." Tell the crew to stand down. On the other side of space, Officer Sella sat with her team. Everyone looked at her. They waited for orders, but she didn't speak right away. Her thoughts were full of what she had seen. One ship had ended a galaxy-wide war, and not because it was the biggest or the most advanced. It was because the people inside. That ship had trained not to destroy, but to stop destruction. Send our full report to the council, she said. Finally, and attach one note. What note, Commander? Her officer asked. Tell them, humans didn't come to win. They came because we failed to stop the war ourselves. They sent the message. Across the galaxy, new talks began. Alien leaders who once refused to speak now sat at the same table. They feared that humans would take control of everything. But no such order came from Earth. In fact, the silent hammer left without asking for anything. No land. No money. No power. They didn't want to lead the galaxy. They just wanted peace. Why are they leaving so soon? Sella's younger officer asked her. Because they weren't here for war, Sella said. They only came to end it. A few days later, Earth sent a single message to all systems. We return to our world. Keep peace. If war begins again, we will return, but next time we will not stop at 5 hours. No threats. Just truth. That message became a law of its own. Even the most powerful warlords didn't dare challenge it. In schools across the galaxy, children now learned about the 5-hour war. They studied how one old-looking ship with calm minds and sharp skill ended what no one else could. Some called it luck. Others called it human design. But most agreed it was the clearest message the stars had ever seen. Peace is a choice. And when the galaxy forgets that, the humans will remind them. On board the Silent Hammer, Captain Lee looked out the window at the stars. Beside him stood his first officer. Do you think they'll listen? The officer asked. Lee didn't answer right away. Then he said, for now. The ship turned. Engines powered up slowly. There was no rush. They weren't escaping, they were returning home. Behind them, the stars were calm again, and the galaxy had learned that silence could be more powerful than war. After the Silent Hammer left, the galaxy felt different. Ships returned to their homeworlds, soldiers went back to families, leaders met to rebuild. The war had scarred many planets, but hope began to grow. Officer Sella was invited to join a new peace council. It was made of representatives from every species. They wanted to understand humans better and keep the peace. Humans had won. Sella traveled to Earth. It was nothing like she imagined. No huge weapons, no giant armies. She saw cities filled with green parks, children laughing, and people working together. She met Captain Lee in a quiet room, far from the warships and battles. Why did you come? She asked him. Lee smiled gently. We came because no one else could stop it. We had to show the galaxy that war doesn't have to last forever. Sella nodded. But your ship, it looked old, simple. Sometimes, Lee said, old things have the best purpose. Our strength is not just in weapons or technology. It's in our heart, our choice to protect, not destroy. They spoke for hours. Sella learned about humans, their history, their struggles, their hopes. She also learned that humans didn't want to rule the galaxy. They wanted to be friends, allies, protectors. Back in space, the Peace Council worked hard. They made new laws to stop wars before they started. They shared technology to help rebuild worlds. And they remembered the humans' message. Peace is stronger than war. But some in the galaxy still doubted. They whispered that humans might return with new weapons. That peace was only a quiet before the storm. Lee knew this was possible. That was why he said quietly to Sella one last time, if the galaxy ever forgets peace, we will come back. And next time, the war won't last 5 hours, it will end in moments. Sella smiled, understanding his warning. The humans had changed the galaxy forever. Not with force, not with pride, but with strength born from calm and hope. The stars shone brighter now, and the galaxy waited, watching, learning, and hoping. Peace had returned to the galaxy, but it was quiet and new. After 50 years of war, many were unsure if peace would last. Old fears stayed alive in the hearts of soldiers and leaders alike. Officer Sella stood on a small planet far from Earth. She looked up at the stars and thought about what had changed. She remembered the human warship, the silent hammer, and how it had moved like a shadow, calm, steady, and unstoppable. The galaxy was not the same anymore after meeting Captain Lee. Sella knew humans were different, not just in power but in heart. They had fought not for glory or conquest but to end suffering. Their quiet strength was a lesson for all. Many species began to build new friendships. Trade routes opened. Old enemies shared stories instead of weapons. Children on different planets learned the same lesson. Peace is not easy, but it is worth. Fighting for Sella became part of a new mission to teach others about the humans and their way of peace. She traveled from world to world, telling the story of the silent hammer and the 5-hour war, but not everyone believed it. Some leaders whispered in shadows, plotting to return to war. They feared losing power. They thought humans were a threat. But Sella knew better. One evening, on a quiet moon, she met a young commander named Torin. He was doubtful, cold, and full of anger. Humans only won because we were weak, Torin said. They will return to rule us all. Sella looked at him calmly. The humans do not want to rule. They want peace. But if the galaxy forgets peace, they will come back not to rule, but to stop war before it starts, Torin frowned. And if they find us fighting again? Then the war will end faster than you think, Sella replied. They showed us that strength is not just in weapons, but in will. Torin was silent for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. Maybe it is time to learn. Across the stars, the silent hammer traveled back to Earth. Captain Lee stood on the bridge, watching the galaxy they had saved. His thoughts were quiet but full of hope. He knew peace was fragile. But he also knew humans had given the galaxy something more valuable than weapons or ships. They had given hope. One day, he said softly to his first officer, the galaxy will remember that peace is the strongest force there is. The stars shone bright as the silent hammer entered Earth's orbit. A new chapter had begun not just for humans, but for all who looked to the stars and dreamed of a better future. And somewhere, in the quiet of space, the galaxy waited, waiting for a peace that was more than silence, waiting for a future where war was just a memory, and knowing deep down that if war ever came again, humans would be ready.